Okay, so one page should be enough, but in case you need more paper, I have more paper here. Don't worry. Okay, but still quite a lot of things lah. Okay, okay, it's just 5 things. It's just 5 things. Okay, it's just 5 things. It's a very long chapters. Very long chapter, but I managed to make it into 5 sections. Okay, first one. Quadratic meaning your x square stuff. Huh? First one is to learn how to solve a quadratic equation. Okay, that was the first thing we learned. Right? Remember, I keep on saying got 3 ways to do it. Okay, got 3 ways to do it. When we say solve, what we're doing is we are looking for the x value, right? You know that a quadratic equation look like this. This is a quadratic equation. And when you say solve, it means that we are trying to find, sometimes they'll say solve, sometimes they'll say find the roots. Roots means x values. Okay, roots means x values. Okay, so like this lah. The first way is to factorize. Okay, the first way is to factorize. I'll just put an example here, maybe 2x plus 1. Just to remind you, I think you all have done this so many times to know what is factorized. But you have this step, and then you will get the answer from the, normally you all use calculator. Okay, so the next one. We have what we call as the quadratic formula. Right, this formula is given in exam. Even in SPM. Okay. The third way is by completing the square. This completing the square that you learn is exactly the same as the completing the square that you just did at the end part of the chapter, where you always want to try to plus b over 2 squared, right? But if it's an equation, then you can plus b over 2 squared on the left side and right side. Right? But if you can only do on one side, because the other side, like let's say got fx, then you will plus and you will minus. But it's the same thing. It's really the same thing. Completing the square is always just this thing. Okay. Yeah. So if you ever forget, you just look back again. But the completing the square here is not as important, really. Your goal is to want to try to make it look like this, so that you can open up the square and become a square root, right? Complete the square. I told you guys you can think of it as putting it into a nice square, to complete it into a nice square. Right, more importantly is when to use which law. Because in exam, most of the time, they won't tell you whether you need to factorize or whether you need to use the formula. So I would say that this one, I use for nice answers. That's a simple way to say it. I use it when I have nice answers. Nice answer meaning -1/2 is a nice answer. Okay, x equals to 3 is a nice answer. Those are nice answers. Nice fractions, nice integers can. I use for nice answers. This one, I use for the ugly decimals. Right? This one, I use only when question asks me to, because completing the square very troublesome. Right? I use when question asked to only. Okay, so generally speaking, you can forget about completing the square unless they ask you to do that, or else you just focus on the first two. Nice answer, bracket, bracket. Ugly answer, you use the formula. Okay, so that was the first thing we learned, how to solve a quadratic equation, how to find the roots. It's been a long, long time, but the second thing we learned was all about SOR, POR. Okay, that was the second thing we learned. Two very important things. Number one, SOR is, well, the sum of the roots, if you go and plus your x values together, it would be negative b over a. And then for POR, if you go and times together, product of roots times together, you will get c over a. Okay. All this is very important. Make sure you keep this piece of paper, or if you're writing in a book, make sure you keep it until you sit for your SPM. Because every time for exam, trust me, you will need this. Okay. Because you will forget one, as you learn things, you will forget one. So this gives you a very clear. Remember, I summarized it based on how to answer exam questions. I did not just summarize it based on the textbook, right? So all these things will help you to answer exam questions. The second thing that you need to know is how to form an equation using SOR and POR. Okay. You might want to remind yourself that SOR usually is accompanied with this negative. POR is usually positive one. That's all for number 2. Okay, by the time we finish SOR, POR, we were at like almost example 20 something or 30 something already. Yeah, but who knew that you can just simplify it this much, right? It's easier for you when you study. Now, quadratic inequalities is the next thing you learn. But there's something you want to make sure of. You want to make sure your ax squared is positive before you type in your calculator, no? So this one, I will split it up into 3 columns like that. So you just agak your space. So let's say I have this. Okay, we know that if it's more than, it would be a, okay, it's always a smiley face, but if it's more than, it's outside of the bowl, right? I always say this as overflow already. If it's a more than sign, I like to tell you it's overflow. Okay, it's outside of the bowl. It come out. You imagine water flowing out of the bowl, right? It will come out from the sides like that. Exactly like how I drew. Okay, and your roots are negative 1 over 2 and 3. And you look at where you shade. You shaded on the left of negative 2. You shaded at the part where it's smaller than negative 2. So you say x is smaller than negative, sorry, not negative 2, negative 1 over 2. Okay, smaller than negative. The graph is telling you where's your answer. You see, you shade on the left side, smaller than. Okay, then here you shade it to the right. That means bigger. X bigger than 3. You write out x bigger than 3. Okay, the next one I will do the same thing, but this time I put smaller or equals to. Okay, this one is a less than sign. less than never overflow. Less than I normally say inside the bowl. Okay, your bowl of soup is still in there, never overflow. So the graph tells you where's your answer. Look at where you shade. You started shading from -1/2 to 3. This is how you write it out in English. How do we write it out in maths? The sandwich one, remember? Sandwich. Right? That literally means this. Get comfortable seeing that. Okay, you're going to see this a lot in your whole maths. Right? That means from -2 until 3. But if you see got less than or equal sign, less than or equal sign, you also add a equal sign for your answer. If don't have, then you don't add. Okay, that is why it's important for us to make ax squared positive, you know. What if you never make ax squared positive? So this method only works if ax squared is positive, right? If it's not, you will shade the wrong place. Okay, you will shade the wrong place. Right? Maybe supposed to be inside the bowl, you shade outside the bowl, then your answer will be wrong. It will affect your answer. Okay. Later, Sanjay. Right. And then one more thing. So other than inside, outside the bowl, we also need to remember that there are some questions which ask you to combine inequalities. Together. Okay, to combine inequalities together, we use a number line. Okay, see if you still remember this. You know, sometimes you solve one inequality and then you solve another inequality and then you get different answers. Then if you want to combine the answers, you put all your numbers in a line. Okay, say you have, I'm just giving you an example. Say you have 1, 2, 3. Okay, one of the answers says, okay, your answer is from 1 until 3, let's say. This is how we draw it, right? 1 until 3. Another answer says it is from 2 and anything bigger than 2, greater or equals to 2. Okay, so the final answer will be where they overlap each other. You see that part that they overlap, right? That is your answer. So okay, if you want to shade down here also can. But it will tell you that, oh, my answer is actually from here until here only. Right? In English, it's like this. In maths, it's the sandwich one, remember? Okay. But you look at the 2 there, right? Got a darkened dot there, right? This dot here is solid. That means got equal. Okay, look at this dot here. Solid dot meaning it got the less than or equal, the line down there, equal sign. But if it's a hollow dot, then it's just like this. Okay. So remember I said got 5 things. Okay, we have covered 3 already. The next one is all about b squared minus 4ac. We call it the determinant. I don't simply use b squared minus 4ac one. I use it only when the question talks about very specific things. For example, type of roots. Or maybe they talk about the type of intersection. Yeah. So we will always say, is it cut 1 place or is it cut 2 place or never cut the graph, that kind of thing. Okay, this one also the same like above. I will split it up into 3 columns. So you agak-agak. Okay, so I will firstly do b squared minus 4ac greater than 0. Okay, this one got a few ways to say it. You can say 2 real and distinct roots. Okay, distinct is another word for different. We can also say intersects at 2 points. Okay, which is trying to tell you that it looks like this. Remember, I keep on telling you guys to remember the shape. So if they say, oh, got 2 roots, that means got 2 answer, got 2 x value, you will cut at 2 places then you will have a graph that look like this. Then it's greater than 0 lah. Okay. Then the next one, I'm gonna do b squared minus 4ac equal to 0. Okay, this one we say 2 real. The word real, don't worry. The word real just means got answer lah. Okay, just means that the answer exists. 2 real and equal roots. Exam very easy to get confused because we keep on focusing on the word 2. The focus is not on the word 2 because this one also got 2. The focus is on the word distinct or different and equal, right? So when you say you got 2 answer, but both answer also the same, that means one answer, right? But they don't like to say 1 root one. They like to say 2 real and equal roots. So just don't get confused by it lah, huh? And then another one would be adjust at 1 point. Okay, maybe I tell you, okay, got this graph, it's gonna cut the other graph at just 1 point. But this kind of touch 1 point thing, right, is also called what? A tangent. Okay, you'll learn that if you have a circle and then touch one line, touch 1 point, the line is called tangent. So same thing, if I have a curve and I got another equation, touch 1 point only, it's called tangent. Okay, which is this shape, which is this shape. So, okay, one last one, we have b squared minus 4ac smaller than 0. Okay. The shape we would think of is like this, where it doesn't touch. Okay, so we have a few ways to describe this. No answer, right? No roots, no real roots, or does not intersect. Okay. Got one special one, we say always positive or always negative. That means the graph always float above the x-axis or always float below the x-axis. It just doesn't cut it. Just doesn't cut the graph. Okay. Okay lah, I know there's one K-bar one, right? This is extra. What if they just say real roots? If real roots, that means b squared minus 4ac. You don't know real, could it be real and distinct or real and equal? So if you don't know which one, they just say real only. They never say real and distinct, real and different. Then it would be both. It'll be both greater than and also equal to. Okay, real roots, because this one also real, this one also real. You don't know which one, right? If they don't say lah, then that means it could be both. It could be greater, it could be equal. Then you write greater and equal. Okay, so that is the fourth thing we learned. The fifth one. Yes, sure. The fifth one is a bit longer. Okay, the fifth one is a bit longer. We are going to look at quadratic graphs and also vertex form. This is the last part of the chapter already. Suddenly 60 examples don't look so intimidating already. So chapter 2 has 60 over examples. Okay. Yeah, so you learn like this, it'll be a lot easier. So we're gonna look at the vertex form first. Okay. Completing the square to get vertex form. That's the first thing we're gonna deal with. Okay. I think the easiest way to remind you of this is I just give you an example. And you go ahead and complete the square like how you usually would. Okay. Then in each of the steps, I would just highlight to you why we do like this, why we do like that. Okay. So, first step, we always factorize. We always want to make sure that it must be 1x squared. It must be positive 1. Okay, I'll take out my calculator. If you are not very good with the factorizing one, we use calculator to do it. You factorize out -4, you have to divide -4 inside. Okay, everybody divide -4. So first one, -4 divided by -4, I get positive 1. Okay, 24 you divide by -4, you get -6. Okay, -31 you divide by -4, you get positive 31 over 4. Okay, that wasn't completing the square. I had to do that to be able to do completing the square, right? I had to do that so that I can do this next step. Or else you can't complete the square. Right, this one you all know what's up lah. You put the square, the stuff that got square in, okay, which is x and -3. 6/2 is -3. -6/2 is -3. And then the behind part, you just add together. Lastly, you times in -4. So don't forget to times to inside here. That's a very common mistake. We always forget to times. Some people forget to times to the inside. So you do -5/4 times -4. Okay. Let's break down the steps a little. No, the bracket is not -b/8. The bracket is -b/2. negative b over. Hey, sorry, not negative here. It's just b over 2. Okay, hold on. I will write it here. Give me a moment. So, okay, the purpose of this step is for what? You must make sure it is 1x squared before you can complete the square. Okay, you must make sure it is 1x squared before you can complete the square. Now, when we actually want to complete the square, what we are doing is, so this is when you complete the square. You will go and plus b over 2 squared. Okay, it's a b over 2, Jared. B over 2 squared minus b over 2 squared. Okay, so your b value is negative 6. If you don't do this, what will happen is that you will take your b value as 24 and it will be wrong. So the b value you need to take is negative 6, not positive 24. Okay, that's why you have to factorize first. You have to make sure this one first, or else you cannot complete the square. Okay, anytime you do completing the square, you must do that first. And this is what we call as the vertex form. And that is how we complete the square to get vertex form. Okay, now that we have the vertex form. You want paper? Okay, actually, Kai-san, I think you write this part right on the right side, the space. Yeah, very little bit only. I later will have a bit more, but since this is related to that, so okay. From the vertex form, okay, very little bit only left. Well, we know that the a value is a negative 4, right? Which tells you that, oh, this guy is a sad face. Okay, but what is the maximum point? What is the maximum coordinate? The whole purpose of doing vertex form is to get the vertex. Apa maksud vertex? Vertex ialah maximum point, minimum point. That is vertex. Okay, the whole purpose is to get the vertex, right? I hope you all know the vertex is 3, 5 from this example. Not negative 3, it's positive 3. Remember, you have to do your x minus 3 equals 0, x equals 3. Okay, yeah. So maximum point. But remember not, from this one thing, they can phrase it different ways, and they can ask you 2 other things. For example, they can ask you, what is the equation of axis of symmetry? That's one. You just say x is equals to 3. They can also ask you, what is the maximum? Be careful, not point. Now I ask you maximum value. Value, you don't give me the whole coordinate. This you only give me the y coordinate. Right? So your equation of axis of symmetry is just another way of asking you, what is the x coordinate? So that's why you don't get confused if they ask you differently. Same thing one. Oh, same thing. Okay. So we are actually done. Okay, we are actually done. But go on extra little. Okay, that I think it's good to know. Okay, so you can write down there, or you write at the side also can if you have space. I'm just a bit left. Right. I just want to also talk about sketching graphs. Okay, just want to remind you that, okay, if you want to sketch your quadratic graphs, you need a few things like your max and min point. Okay. You need your intercepts. Okay, you need your intercepts. Intercepts is your x equals 0, y equals to 0. Remember, at the x-axis, y is 0. At the y-axis, x is 0. You also need your domain. Okay, maybe sometimes they ask you, can you draw a graph for me that is from -1 until 5? Then you need to draw from -1 until 5. Don't draw over. So that's why you need to know you need to sub in x equals to -1. You need to sub in x equals to 5. Right? So these are some of the values, some of the points you need to draw your whole graph up. Like I said, your teachers know students don't like graph. They like to ask graph then. Yeah, so just be careful, right? Just know how to do it lah. Okay. And there's one more thing that is not in the books, but it's in the textbook. I feel like I need to go through this, which is called intercept form for quadratic equation. Okay. I have seen this being asked once in a state paper, just once. Okay. I think you should be aware about it. Okay. Okay. You know how this one we call it vertex form? And then if we have something like this, we call it general form. Got one more form called intercept form. Okay, intercept form. I'll show you how to do it. First of all, you factorize whatever you can. Remember, this is not completing assignment, but so you just factorize 2 only. Okay, everybody can divide by 2, huh? Okay, everybody can divide by 2. Then let's type in the calculator. We factorize this in the calculator. I get x minus 3 and okay, you know what? Sorry, I write the second one first. 2x plus 1 and x minus 3. Okay, you get the calculator gives you this and this. Okay, x minus 3 and then 2x plus 1. To get intercept formula, we want to always make the x be positive 1. So far what we did was just factorize out anything in common and then factorize again. One extra step you need to do is to pull this. You see this 2, you pull it out. What will happen is that inside everybody need to divide by 2. Okay, from that 2x plus 1 bracket, you pull out the 2 and then everything divide by 2 in fact. So it's like this now. Okay, this is called intercept form. 4 bracket x plus 1 over 2 bracket x minus 3. It is called intercept form because you can get your x-intercept straight away. your x-intercept is -1/2 and +3. Yeah, remember the thing in the bracket is equals to 0, so x is -1/2 and x is 3. That's why it's called the intercept form. You know, if you straight away type in your calculator this, you also get the same answer. Okay, you also get the same intercept. But I don't think you will get the 4 outside here. Okay, which makes your equation wrong then. Yeah. Remember, when you get from your calculator, I know you'll get very excited here because when you type in your calculator will give you -1/2, and then you write, oh, I just write like that lah, because intercept form need to be x. Cannot. You see, this one is a 4, yours is a 2. Every time you type in your calculator, in the bracket, it will never be a fraction one. Okay, it will never be a fraction. From your calculator, the answer is always a nice whole number. Everything must be whole number. You want to make it a fraction, you want to get x, you have to continue to pull it out. Okay, so just know about this, know that this thing exists. Yes. So, so the question that has been asked once, right, in the state paper was that they say, I'll just write this equation in intercept form. So you just factorize. Just keep on factorizing until the end there. And then you try to make x as +1. So if you've got any number, you just pull it out again. Okay, that's all. But so that one not so important, but if you look at what we have learned, right? Oh, it's just solving and then SOR, POR. I hope it makes it easier for you when you revise, right? Let's say you just go through this list before exam and then you see, I think I'm not very good with, or maybe I've forgotten how to complete the square. You go and look at a few examples. Or maybe I forgot my b squared minus 4ac. Look at a few examples. And also, it helps you to think. Let's say, in exam, you look at a question. Okay, question number 1. Then you see, this one look like chapter 2. And then, but you don't know how to start. You know what you can do? You start to think, which one of the 5 things is most likely? Is it asking you to solve equation? Is it asking you about SOR, POR? Is it asking you about inequalities? Is it asking you about b squared minus 4ac? Is it asking you about vertex form, maximum, minimum point, all that stuff? Right? So it is usually one of these 5. Let's take a break.